Good afternoon. Welcome to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. Bit of a different show today in that our two regular co-hosts, are both on the road. And they join us now via telephone. I speak of Ian McLean, president of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, and his partner and co-host, Greg DeRocher, president of the Cambridge Chamber. Gentlemen, good afternoon.
How are you, Glenn?
Not too bad. Ian, do we have Greg as well? All right, we'll get Greg in just a moment. Ian, quite a one. Before we get into the show, I got to say, you guys at the Greater KW really know how to throw a gala event. I speak of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Awards at Binghamton's this week. It was a first-class event, and I gotta tip the hat to you and your organizing committee.
Yeah, it's a fabulous event. It's our marquee event of the year. We had over 775 people at Binghamton's celebrating, I think it was 76 nominees in 13 categories, and had just a great night. Great night of networking and people just making connections, which is probably the most important part, but also celebrating the important and successful businesses that make our community so great. So, we recognize Bill Pegg, who's a 35-year volunteer at the Chamber, for his lifetime achievement in terms of supporting Chamber and Chamber initiatives, but everything from the Lyle S. Hallman Foundation to Xylotech to Tracy Screen Printing. So we had small business tech, great volunteers, Ontario Drive and Gear, a great manufacturer that's a member. So we had a fabulous night, just amazing. And our committee, both for actually producing the event, but also the awards committee, did a fantastic job.
Yeah, Xylotech, by the way, winning Business of the Year for businesses with 20 or more employees, and Tracy's Screen Printing, 20 and less employees, Business of the Year. Greg DeRocher joining us now. He's on the phone as well. Good afternoon, Greg.
How are you, gentlemen?
Not too bad at all. Well, let's get right to it. Greg is en route to Pearson International and is scheduled for a meeting in about half an hour for your Nexus Trusted Traveler Pass. You're going to be meeting with staff of the Immigration and Border Services. Tell us about this Nexus Traveler Pass.
Well, I'm actually standing right outside the office right now and getting ready. I have an appointment scheduled for 12:40, and basically it's a program that really does the background check in advance of clearing customs, and it puts you at the front of the line. So Ian already has his Nexus Pass, and I think it's critically important that those of us who are, like Ian and I, who are daily advising businesses on programs that are of an advantage to them, certainly we need to have the pass in order to and go through the process. And it's a little bit of a grueling process, but you know what? I think in the long run, it's something that certainly every business owner and even employees should have the Trusted Travel Program. It's not just an advantage of going to the United States. There's also an advantage of bringing you to the front of the line from a screening process when you're even doing domestic travel within Canada.
Yeah, and I went through this in early 2010, so I've had my card since March 2010. I just actually pulled it out of my wallet, and it really is the number one thing is the convenience of getting not only in our domestic airports. So when you travel from Pearson to Toronto or to Halifax, it does get you to the head of the line. So when you see those great big lineups in Pearson of 200 or 300 or 400 people all trying to get through security, there's a separate line for Nexus card holders that go right to the front of the line. So quite literally, you'll go ahead of 300 people because you've gone through this. As Greg says, it's pretty exhaustive. You do have to do an online application. Then, as Greg's doing today, I went to Fort Erie for mine actually, but you go to have that interview with the U.S. Border Service, and but once you've got that, they know that you are what they call it's really the Trusted Traveler Program. That's the equivalent of that they came up with and call it Nexus. So in the U.S., you'll see Global Entry or GOES, and that's the same as Nexus in Canada. And it really is. I came back last time we were on the radio, I was in New York City. So when I came back, there was a lot of flights get out. I go and punch in at a kiosk that I don't have anything to declare. I bypass about 300 people, go right to a Canadian Border Security. He says, just takes a look at it, says, oh, you've got your Nexus card, and away I go. I was through security and probably.
But they still do, Ian. They still do the same security check on you, right?
When you get to the you still have to take off your boots and everything,
Yeah.
but you go to the head of the line. Those 300 people you go to head of. But when you come through and go through customs, you still see a customs officer, but you go right ahead of that long 300 or 400 people that are in front of you, because they can still have the opportunity to search you. But by and large, they don't. They know that you give them a credit card, and Greg will do this later, which is, so if you go through and say, okay, I did buy some whatever clothes in New York City, and I'm declaring $1,000, which is over the limit. They'll say, okay, that's great, and it'll just get charged to your credit card. So you actually don't have to do a lot of the screening. And again, it's the convenience factor for anyone traveling on business, and it doesn't even mean you have to go through the U.S. Anywhere in Canada, it gets you to the head of the line and saves you time when you get to that meeting and you need to rush to out of the airport. You save a ton of time. I can't speak highly enough about the program itself.
And reasonably priced. And by the way, I'll give you the website if you want.
$50.
If you want to, $50. I mean, that
good
seems
for 5 years too.
That seems very, very reasonable.
I'll give you an example of a couple of shows ago when I was down in Las Vegas, and by the way, I flew out of American Airlines from Kitchener to Chicago and then on to Vegas. It was fantastic. It was just absolutely so.
Great service.
Wonderful equipment that they use as well. But I got to the Chicago airport where I go through U.S. Customs, because we don't have U.S. Customs out at the Kitchener airport. So I'm standing in line behind 400 Chinese exchange students, and I'm looking to my right, and I'm watching these global entry trusted travelers coming through, and they're literally, 30 seconds, and they're through the gate and grabbing their luggage, and on they go to their next connection. So I was about an hour and a quarter in line waiting to go through to get my luggage, where these gentlemen that were and ladies that were coming in and using the global entry system, they were less than a minute.
Well, when I was coming through New York, I mean, most of the time, there are border crossings even between Canada and the U.S. where there are Nexus only. So for when you're going across Buffalo or Windsor or wherever, Sarnia, where there are Nexus only lines, where if you have a Nexus, you go to a separate line, so you don't have to go through that screening process. But even coming back with Deb Curry from Center in the Square and Georgia Bolger from SG Cunningham, they didn't have their cards, but I showed my card, and the three of us were going through security in New York City. Or at I guess we were at LaGuardia in New York, and there was literally 200 or 300 people, and he said, "Okay, you three, come up with your party," and we go right through. So you do save a ton of time, and an hour and a quarter is not unusual when you're going through those security checks.
Is an interview, Greg? I understand you're having an interview with Canadian Border Services Agency officials. Is that part of is that a mandatory part of the process?
Oh yeah, it's a mandatory part of the process. The other thing is they'll fingerprint me. They'll also do an iris scan.
Yep.
And I'll get my photo taken, and then they'll create the card for me. So yeah, it's a little. You know what? To make the 55-minute drive down this morning to sit here and wait, and then go in and go through the process, probably an hour and a quarter process. A little bit of a pain in the neck, but you know what? The future savings of time is going to be incredible.
Time is money.
The other thing is too, it's good for 5 years for $50. So the hassle on the front end a little bit, but boy, when you go to renew it too, you've already been through a lot of the process, right? So unless they have reason to question your as a trusted traveler, it's easy on the back end too. So I can't say enough about it. It's a great program, and it's going to help.
Very quickly, we have a couple of minutes before we have to take our first break. Greg, how do you begin the process? Do you go online and then take it from there? How does it work?
You can go online to nexus.com, and it'll give you directions on how to approach the online application. It is incredibly simple. Have your passport with you, because you're going to need to enter your passport number, but just follow the steps. It was like anybody could do it, and you just sit then and wait, and you get an email back, and it'll tell you you can go in and schedule your appointment. You simply log back on and schedule your appointment and print off the letter of invite and show up at your scheduled time, and it's It's really that simple. And I think, I only go to the U.S. probably twice a year, maybe even once a year. And domestic travel, probably the same thing, 2 or 3 times a year. I guess I don't need it, but, anybody should be going through the process because, in this day and age of what's going on and how the security levels are, we should be pre-screening ourselves. We should be, in order to make it easier access for everyone to travel.
All right, I'm going to give out the. This website is so long and convoluted, so I'm not going to give you. It's a Canada Border Services Agency website that you go through. If you simply Google Nexus Trusted Traveler. Nexus Trusted Traveler. That'll take you to the Canada Border Services Agency website, and there's a step-by-step process on that website.
I'll tell you, Glenn and Greg, I got through it, which means absolutely anyone can get through the process.
Yeah, Nexus Trusted Traveler. Google that. Takes you to Canada Border Services, and then there's a whole process. You just click your way through it. Sounds like a great program, gentlemen, and thanks for sharing the process with us, Greg.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to come back with more. When we return, we have a new premier in Queen's Park. We all knew that, but she has delivered via the Lieutenant Governor her throne speech. We're going to talk about it, what's good about it, what was bad, and how business may be affected given the stability of this government. It will depend on what it does to satisfy the NDP's proposals, one of which was backtracking on the corporate tax reduction legislation. We're coming back with more as Business to Business, powered by Allstream, continues on 570 News. Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. Joined as always by our co-hosts, Ian McLean, president of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, and Greg DeRocher, president of the Cambridge Chamber, both on business and joining us via telephone this afternoon. And gentlemen, Premier Wynn's throne speech delivered Tuesday of this week. Good enough for the NDP leader, Ms. Horvath, and for the two teachers' unions, two teachers' union leaders fighting the Liberal government. But Tory leader Tim Hudak said there aren't enough spending cuts in the speech, given the deficit of nearly $12 billion. Gentlemen, your take on what you heard? What
it was the most neutral throne speech I think I've ever heard. And I think, when Kathleen Wynne was first sworn in and she came out and talked about her throne speech and she said there's going to be a little bit in it for everybody, I think, quite frankly, there was really nothing in it for anybody. And I think that's really where the problem's going to be. I think that's what you get with a minority government is you get them trying to balance things off to maintain power, and I think it's going to be a problem. We've got a $12 billion deficit that really needs some difficult decisions made.
Yeah, and I guess that's what they sometimes call it in politics is, to try and buy the support of somebody. They try and put a chicken in every pot, right? So everyone's happy. And my guess is, at least from this perspective, the throne speech gives them a temporary reprieve because the NDP have said they'll support the throne speech, but really the question is, are they just surviving till their budget comes? Because it's really hard to see how they make they square the circle of being able to control the deficit and make the investments, and they're very significant investments that the NDP are calling for. When you put it on top of the scandals and whether it's the gas plants or Orange or these other things, I think it's going to be difficult for any of the opposition parties to support the Liberals based on that. And in fact, reading Rex Murphy's column yesterday, I think it was in the Globe or wherever it was, I read it, and he just really said, the after 9 or 10 years, and this is no different, this isn't a partisan shot, it's the same thing with the Liberal government or the Conservative government federally under Mulroney, the same thing with Mike Harris. After 8 or 9 or 10 years, you got a lot of things to defend, and a lot of them are very difficult to, and that's, I think, going to be a challenge for the Wynne government.
I think it's absolutely huge that for them to maintain any type of working relationship with either party at this point. I think, you still have a divided province, and that's going to create a little bit of an issue. But, I just think that, Ms. Wynne going into it has got too much of the McGuinty baggage that everybody has just said, I don't want any more of that. And I think it's really going to be a challenge for her. The other thing is, Glenn, you were absolutely right that Andrea Horwath came out at the very beginning and said, I'm going to support the throne speech. And then, 2 days later when they entertained question period with respect to the gas plant issue, she came back out and said, how are we ever going to trust Liberals again in this province? So, I think it's going to be hard for her to go back and even support the budget at the end with those kind of comments.
From an economic perspective, though, gentlemen, and I'm not familiar with the details of it, from that perspective, what initiatives, if any, did you see?
Well, that's maybe therein lies the problem, Glenn. I didn't see anything. I saw a lot of talk about being fair. And, unfortunately, when you get a $12 billion deficit, I'm not sure how much fairness can be put into that. We have to address that challenge immediately.
So you're saying it was high on rhetoric, Greg?
Well, but throne speeches are always high on rhetoric. The problem is that what you've got is they were trying to appeal to everyone and say, we're different. This is a different look and feel, and that's I mean, it's fair enough that they go ahead and try and do that. But the fact of the matter is, they start talking about things like, yes, we're going to still eliminate the deficit in the same time frame, but start talking about things like we got to make investments in transit, which may or may not be the right policy, but are talking about huge new taxes, which the Tories can't support, and they've got other parts of their agenda which the NDP can't support. And the bottom line here is, I thought about this and saying, not as a partisan shot, but the election we had, whatever it was, 12 or 18 months ago, the people put Dalton McGuinty as premier on a short leash. And so it's difficult to see how either of the opposition parties support a new premier without going back to the people and saying, and I think one way or the other, whether it means a Liberal majority or a change in government, we need more certainty than what we have right now. And going lurching from crisis to crisis,
gentlemen,
issue to issue is not the right way to go.
One of the things that Mr. Onley said on the Premier's behalf in delivering it was that this government will work with the opposition to target quote corporate tax compliance. Do you know what they're hinting at?
Well, again, that's very vague, and that may be a message to the NDP that they're going to accept their requirement or what they want to do, which is reinstate the cuts to the corporate tax levies in Ontario, and then look at some sort of incentive. If you hire somebody, you'll get a break. And I think that was that message.
Well, the other thing, too, I mean, it's like the problems they're having in the U.S., and it's no different here when you're trying to find, even in budgets, they'll say, here's the number. We're going to find $2 billion in closing loopholes and getting fraud and waste out of the system. Well, you know what? They've had 9 years to do that, just like federally the Tories are saying the same thing. So I think that's one of those vague generalities of saying, it won't be hard, but there's all this, these closing of loopholes is what they were getting at in that one. Boy, I want to see the devil's in the detail. Always is, and we haven't seen any of those details. And that's why I think the budget is really the document that I think is for business perspective is either going to show what the Liberals, whether the NDP actually write the budget and it's a big spending and tax budget, or whether the Liberals kind of have that middle of the road. But it's hard to to me it's going to be difficult to see how they get the support to get a budget passed.
Oh, for sure. I think they're in trouble.
On the other hand, I'm not sure if it was directly connected to anything contained in the throne speech, but a bit of a victory for Premier Wynne late last week, or was it yesterday? I think it was late Friday. Late Friday.
Yep.
The high school teachers union suggesting that they're going to recommend to their members that they get back to providing extracurricular activities.
Well, I think they a lot of them had already started back, and the teachers themselves, to give them credit, have been, I don't think there was many of them that were really impressed with the leadership of the union putting kids in the middle of that. So I think that many were already starting to say we're going back. So, what it really is a win for kids. It's a win for parents to get those extracurriculars, which are really important for kids. But we'll see whether the goodwill that comes out of this between the teachers union and the government holds true when there's no money and there's not a lot that they can do to really turn the channel.
Yeah, it might have been a signal from the union that we're willing to work with the new premier, but in reality, I think it was more a signal from the union members who said, "Look, we've had enough of this as well."
Yeah. All right. So, Greg, you're going to leave us now. Is that right?
I'm going to leave you. Yes.
Okay.
I know the show is in capable hands with Ian and yourself. So I'm going to go into my appointment, get my fingerprints done, get my irises scanned, get my picture taken, and hopefully everything is smooth.
Greg, you're trusting us where thousands of others would have grave doubts, but we appreciate the confidence.
All right, Greg.
Oh, no, in good hands. Thanks, guys.
Greg, thanks for joining us from Pearson, where Greg's leaving us now, where Greg was getting his Nexus Trusted Travelers card, and he recommends that, as does Ian, to business travelers. And Ian, you're still there, right?
Yes, sir.
We made such a point about how this expedites the process when you're crossing the border, but it's also a good thing to have just domestically, right?
Oh, and amazing. I do probably more domestic travel in and around Ontario and places I've been to in BC and the East Coast, going to chamber events actually than I do to the U.S. So I've gone 2 or 3 times in the last 2 or 3 years to the U.S. I go every spring on a drive down to New York State, but most of mine has been domestically. So when I go from Pearson to Montreal or Pearson to Ottawa, which I do regularly, it's still a huge time saver. You do get preferential treatment. That's what this program is. It's why they call it the Trusted Traveler Program, and it makes a huge difference. Right. I can't say enough about it. Anyone that does any sort of traveling should consider this program.
Okay.
So
we're going to come back and talk more about you specifically and some of the things that are going on at your chamber.
And some stuff that we're doing in collaboration with Cambridge, frankly, too.
Right. Oh, yeah, LeaderCast, right?
LeaderCast.
And LeaderCast is in
Summit,
combination with
Yeah,
Cambridge.
we got some great things happening. We're doing with Cambridge.
Okay. We're going to come back and talk about that. But next, we will chat with Dax Nair from Allstream and see some of the great work they're doing. Allstream, our main sponsor here on Business to Business on 570 News. Lots more to get to as Business to Business continues, powered by Allstream on 570 News. And welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. And we're going to replay an interview that Greg did earlier with Dax Nair of Allstream, and this is how it sounded.
Well, Dax, it's wonderful to have you here with us today on Business to Business, powered by Allstream, of course. And, you've got something kind of unique, unified communications and collaboration. Maybe tell me a little bit about what that is.
Thank you for having me, first of all. Well, unified communications really is a technology that enables businesses to seamlessly bring communications across organizations, from anywhere, anytime, on any device or media, meaning wired, wireless, type of network. Expectations of customers are shifting, workplaces are shifting. So definitely this change has to be accommodated, and the technology really helps speed of communications in a device-independent fashion. That's really what unified communication does.
So you're really talking about collaborating all of the different communication devices that we use on a daily basis and unifying them into one kind of seamless system.
Yes, that is indeed right. So there are many ways this can be done. Now, collaboration may not be an obvious word to users. So on top of basic telephony and voicemail kind of use that we every day have, we can add on things like web conferencing. We can add things like video conferencing. We can add instant messaging and things like that to that environment, and make sure that whatever device you're on, you're able to connect to the company's network and receive calls or messages as and when you want them to be. It's your choice. It's user controlled, and you have the ability to take those calls in a unified manner, in a device-independent fashion.
So then, based on the infrastructure, what are some of the challenges that businesses are facing today with that current infrastructure they have?
Clearly, some of the obvious ones are, there are so many different types of systems out there, what we would call legacy. So from a company's perspective, forklifting some of those things becomes a big challenge. It's a lot of cost involved. Now, there are also employees these days are increasingly mobile, and they are different locations. Some of them are teleworkers. So the main challenge the companies face is how do you seamlessly bring these users together so that they have a sort of a cohesive approach to everything that they need to access to deliver their job in a productive manner. So that's one of the key ones. Now the other ones are like reaching out to customers or vendors, partners, etc. Those communications also have to be sort of do you give out 10 numbers to different people, or do you give them one number so that you can, whatever number they call, they can seamlessly reach you wherever you are, again back on any other device that you have. So those are some of the challenges that the companies are trying to resolve. So it comes down to money primarily, and then also the level of complexity in their work environment in terms of how dispersed is the organization, and is there a requirement to bring in, let's say, skilled resources that may be not in one location together for a project, so that you leverage skill sets that are perhaps across the country using these technologies.
You are listening to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream, and we are delighted to be in conversation with Dax Nair. He is the Director of Marketing for Unified Communications at Allstream. We're talking about the theme of collaboration, and Greg, take it away.
Well, we're collaborating all the time, Glenn, of course, but what are the business benefits then, Dax, of adopting Allstream's unified communication solution?
Well, there are many. I'll just touch upon a few. So when you specifically to Allstream, as you probably know, we are a national provider of network services, which is the underpinning technology requirement or the network requirement to deliver unified communication solutions across various branches of an organization. So Allstream has the ability to really work with customers to identify solutions that specifically address customers' business challenges. Now, an example would be you have employees on the road way more than some of the other organizations that you normally see. So how do you make sure that they are able to connect? So we can work with the customer to make sure that we look at their problem and then provide a solution to that. We are also able to accommodate customers' requirements for that. Perhaps they have capital to spend or they don't have capital to spend. So we can come up with financial creative models that may work for the customer. And of course, at the end of the day, the unified communications benefits some of the benefits that we mentioned earlier are definitely available. Things like improving productivity, the cohesive approach to the communications across an organization, and then quicker response times. If you are on the road trying to strike a deal, you need to reach the decision maker in real time, and you are not hampered by the fact that you need to leave a message and then wait for an answer. Those things go away when you deploy a solution, a unified communication solution. Especially since we are the end-to-end network provider, we have seamless control, and we can make that a secure and managed environment for you.
Dax, I want to thank you very much for your time today. Keep up the great work at Allstream. We're delighted to have you on board as our primary sponsor. So have a great rest of your weekend, Dax.
Thank you. I need it. If you look out the window today, you would know what I'm talking about.
Oh, no kidding. Dax Nair has been our guest. He is the Director of Marketing for Unified Communications at Allstream.
Yes.
All right. And to find out more about Allstream, you can check them out on the web at www.allstream.com. That's allstream.com. 570 News is proud to team up with Allstream each and every Sunday during Business to Business on 570 News. When we come back, is Ian, are you there, or is he still?
Sure.
Oh, you're back from.
I'm back from my break.
From your quote unquote break.
Break.
All right, great to have you back. When we come back, we're going to talk about something that you've been doing now for a few years called LeaderCast. This is a huge effort on your part in teaming up with the Cambridge Chamber, and you bring in via satellite some of the world's top speakers.
Yeah, it's an amazing event. We did Cambridge, and Greg and the gang have been doing it for 2 years. Last year was our first year, but we had 250 people last year. I expect upwards of 500 this year, and I'll get to it after the break. But it's a series of speakers, an all-day event for $100. It's the best $100 you can do for team development, personal development, and just good leadership training. And I'll explain all about it. But it's a fantastic day.
We're going to talk more about LeaderCast when we return. You're listening to Business, powered by Allstream on 570 News. And sorry, big guy. Oh, I did it again. Sorry, big guy. Hi, welcome back to Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Allstream. This segment of Business to Business is powered by Save On Energy, or is brought to you by Save On Energy, brought to you by your local electric utilities. We are being produced this afternoon by one of the happiest people on the planet. I'm telling you, you cannot help but feel good when you're working with Catherine Drake. She would be a good representative for the chamber if you're looking for somebody.
Absolutely, she does a great job.
Oh my God, she's just so ebullient and bubbly and happy, and equally so is normally our radio producer, now doing the web streaming, producing the webcast, is the one and only Elizabeth Russell. And without Liz and Catherine, we wouldn't be on the air. So we want to thank them as we do every Sunday on the show. Okay, Ian McLean is joining us on the telephone from where are you? You're in Hamilton, right?
I'm in Hamilton. My daughter's in a basketball tournament, the Blessed Sacrament basketball tournament. We're just about to go to the gold medal game, so I'm making this phone call from our lunch break.
Excellent.
So we're looking forward to going for the gold and bringing it back to the region.
All right. Say hi to Hannah for us. She's been a frequent guest on the show. Well, let's put it this way. She's often accompanied you in the studio, and just a delightful kid. Okay, you've got LeaderCast coming up. What's it about, and how can local business people get involved?
Well, it's a joint event that, in fact, the three things we'll talk about right now are all things that we're working together with, collaborating with the Cambridge Chamber on. So LeaderCast is really what it is. It's leadership development, it's team building, and it's great information in terms of how to innovate and grow your business. So it's a tremendous opportunity. So what it is a full day event. So it goes from like 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon or 5 in the afternoon. And there's a list of at least 9, if not 10 speakers, and it's simulcast. So it's a satellite simulcast done out of Atlanta, Georgia. But they have world-class speakers, and just to give you a flavor of this, so Jack Welch, who's the former chair of and CEO of GE, Andy Stanley, who's a world-renowned leadership and communication expert, Mike Krzyzewski, the coach for over 30 years of the Duke Blue Devils. And anyone that's watched NCAA basketball or the Olympics will know that he's won 2 U.S. Olympic golds. He's won 4 NCAA championships. But talks about leadership and how to get the best out of young players, but do it in a way that talks about their personal development. John Maxwell, who's a leadership expert. There's a Lieutenant Commander Rourke Denver, I believe, who's a U.S. Navy SEAL and Special Forces. So really interesting people talking about how they've developed teams, how they've grown. But my personal favorite, and I'm really looking forward to this year, is Condoleezza Rice. And she's the former U.S. Secretary of State, the first African-American woman to ever hold that position. And I think it'd be fascinating to talk about her experiences, not only in politics, but how the world has become far more global. And we talked about this many times in the program, Glenn, the importance of seeing the world as a smaller place and for business to get out and reach beyond its own borders. So it's a fantastic day, and again, for leadership and innovation and building your teams. What we also know now is that it's accredited for up to 8 hours of credit for training and your career training and development. So lawyers will get 8 hours credit with the Law Society. HR professionals and the HRPAO will honor 8 hours of leadership development training. Accountants, we're about to get confirmation that the Accounting Society will honor that as well. So, but we also encourage. We had a lot of small businesses last year who came away, and not-for-profits that were there. John Newfield from the House of Friendship, who came away and said that was the best 8 hours they'd spent because they got and I've actually used some of the things that I learned last year with my own team at the chamber and said it's made us a better team. So
we should point out too, I mean, as much as you're hosting it along with the Cambridge Chamber, this is done live from Atlanta, and it's going
global.
to be, and it's simulcast around the world. So
Absolutely.
You're actually part of a global audience.
Yeah, it's a global audience, and there's points all over North America primarily, but it's all over the world. And again, you don't get speakers like that. Jack Welch, Condoleezza Rice, David Allen, who's a productivity expert, Mike Krzyzewski. Those are world-renowned.
By the way, those that read business books might recall David Allen's book. It was a bestseller, Getting Things Done.
Yeah, Getting Things
Done.
And
he is a foremost expert on productivity, if that appeals. Yeah.
So we're really excited about that. That's coming up on May 10th. Now, May 1st, we have our second annual the second annual Manufacturing Innovation Network Manufacturing Summit. And this is something that we now, the two chambers we're actually producing it, if you will, or we're doing the event planning and helping to bring manufacturers from right across the region to this event. Last year there was about 450, 500 people. We expect more this year. We're going to have more actual manufacturers and do that matchmaking, almost like that Centralia model, where we'll get some manufacturers to connect with one another. So hopefully regional or manufacturers in the region can make some connections and figure out how they can do more business. We're very fortunate to have Gowlings and Cowan and KPMG and TD Bank to be the main sponsors for that event. But it's a full day, again, a full day event where there's 4 or 5 breakout sessions where we'll talk about how to deal with labor challenges in the manufacturing sector, how to be successful with transformation and innovation in the manufacturing sector, and then things that are very practical for many manufacturers. It's a family-owned business. How to sell your business? That's your retirement when you. How do you transform it and make it into get the value out of the business you set? So. A great day. That comes up on May 1st. We're going to have. We're working on.
So both of these events are in May.
Both those are in May.
And
last year we had Jim Flaherty, the Minister of Finance, federally speak as the keynote. We've got some great keynotes coming up for that event. So it's really going to be an exciting time, and I'm really pleased that the Cambridge Chamber.
Okay, what's the easiest way for if someone's
listening? Go to either
of
our website for both events. You can go to the Cambridge website or the Greater KW Chamber website, and there'll be links there through our events pages. You can register either one. Certainly for the Min Summit, I encourage you to get in touch with either Greg or myself directly if you're a manufacturer and want to make some of those connections, where we'll give you 2 or 3 individual 20-minute meetings to connect with other manufacturers, which is huge value. And then in the fall we continue to do our travel. We've done again in partnership with the Cambridge Chamber a trip to China. We're doing India, and we're doing another China trip, and now we're going to Ireland. So and there's lots more on the website coming on that.
Okay, couple of minutes to go. We've got to revisit that great evening that you organized last week, your annual Business Excellence Awards Gala. This event just gets bigger and better each year, and some highlights. I mean, one of the things I think needs to be pointed out. Yes, you gave away 12 awards, but there were 70 companies nominated for those awards, and those companies, the ones that didn't win, that takes nothing away from them.
Oh, absolutely not. You got to remember, we have in our chambers almost 1,800 members, and there's 75 of them that are nominated in 13 categories. I mean, just being nominated puts you in the elite of the business community, and so we're extreme. I mean, it makes me so proud every year to be the president of the chamber because, while I don't have a lot to do with putting it together, Janet Taylor from CTV does the production side along with Terry and my event staff. But all the champions, there's a champion that's a volunteer that goes through all the nominations and helps the judges and the selection committee say, here are the wonderful things that these folks are doing. So there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of volunteers that put this together. And I would say you've got some big fans, Georgia Cunningham and Deb Curry from. I know we had a great chat at one of the receptions there, but they love listening to your this radio program, and they call it your radio program because you're the real star.
Yeah, right. Very quickly, about a minute to go. Anything going on at the chamber this week you want to mention?
This week is actually we're slowing down a little bit. Last week the business it's a huge event for us, so we've got some things coming up next week. I believe we have you're right. This week we do have another event coming up with the 3 hospital presidents. They're coming in that working on following on in our economic development series where we had the 3 university presidents and community college president. So we're talking about the larger picture of how our community has been so successful in terms of economic development and the building blocks that are important for
that. That's coming up on the 28th, and I'm honored to be the moderator again for that event. Yeah. So at the Waterloo Inn. Ian, the time has come to say so long, and thank you so much for your time again hosting the show.
Thank you for always doing a great job. We always enjoyed it.
All right, my friend. All right, have a great week, the rest of your weekend.
You too.
That's Ian McLean, President of the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for listening to Business, powered by Allstream, produced by the one and only Catherine Drake and Elizabeth Russell. This has been Business to Business on 570 News.